there were these guys. And they were sitting at the bar, and they were talking to the bartender, and one of the guys looks over and he says, man, you know, I just closed on a house out in the suburbs, so I'm probably gonna have to buy a car, because, you know, I'm so used to riding on mass transit, but it doesn't go out to the suburbs, so I'm gonna have to buy a new car. And the guy next to him looks at him and says, you know what? I've been looking myself this past week for a new car. I'm gonna have to get one also. So I've been kind of looking for the best deal and shopping around. So if I come across a good deal, I'll let you know where to go. And the first guy was like, nah, you know what? I'm just gonna go to the lot. I'm going to the first deal down the road, and I'm just gonna get the best thing they have in the showroom with all the best numbers, and I'm just gonna take it and ride off. Another guy's, well, you know, don't you at least want to test drive it and do all that stuff? Sometimes you can get the same car that's maybe a little older, a little used, and you can get a better deal on it, but it's the exact same car. It's like, no, I want the less miles as they have. And they went back and forth for a little while, and eventually they went on their ways. So about a week later, the bartender's sitting there attending bar, and the second guy comes in and sits down, and the bartender, being a good bartender, you know, he says, well, how'd it go? Did you get your car? And he's like, yeah, man, you see, I went to this one place, and they had a car I liked, and, you know, the miles, they weren't too bad, but, you know, maybe 30,000 miles or so, but, you know, it was a good car. I liked the way it rode, so I went home, and I got the Carfax on it, and I came back and talked to the dealer, and, you know, they knocked off some money because they had some issues. And the bartender's like, well, what kind of issues? He's like, well, you know, it only had one owner, but they didn't drive it often, and they often parked it in the sun. So the way the car sat, the sun always hit the passenger seat. So the passenger seat, the leather is a little more faded than it is on the driver's side. But that's not a big deal. I can live with that. And the bartender's like, yeah, that's not that big a deal. He said, also, it had a slight oil leak. But, you know, that wasn't a big deal either, because that's easy to fix. You know, it's just from the oil plug has just been kind of screwed too tight a few times, and it just stripped it a little bit. But they recorded it, and they put a new one in, retapped it, so that's fixed. That's fine. The bartender was like, yeah, that wasn't too bad. And they went on. He talked about this, and he talked about that, and he said, man, you had a lot of problems. He's like, no, but they were all superficial problems. I can live with any of them, but in the course of negotiating, they actually fixed them all, and they gave me better stuff. So the car is actually better than when it was brand new off the lot. And the bartender's like, well, man, good for you. And so the patron number two, he's asked the bartender, well, what happened to the other guy? Did you ever hear from him? Did he get a car? And the bartender looked at him sadly and said, yeah, he got a brand new car. He said, brand new? He said, yeah, he drove by and showed it to me. It only had 20 miles on it. He's like, what? Fresh paint, fresh steel, smelled new. It was a beautiful car. I mean, like 20 miles, brand new. He got a good deal. Fabulous. He loved his car. He said, well, that's great for him. He said, well, it's not so good. He's like, well, what's not good about a brand new car with 20 miles that you got a good deal on it? He said, well, it's a brand new car, but it had one of those airbags. He got about 2 miles up the road and hit a pothole. The airbag went off and killed him. That's the story. Oftentimes, in the relationships we choose, we may sometimes create for ourselves or actually buy into some triggers that are going to cause us trouble in the future. We don't explore our relationships deep enough or far enough that we don't see all the landmines and conflicts that may come just from character differences that can eventually become triggers that can eventually lead to our depressive states or our angry states or our low self-esteem. look, when you're dating somebody, what's the average date? Hour, 2 hours for a decent date? Bad date, 15 minutes. Great date, maybe half a day. Super perfect, wonderful, amazing, incredible, never seen before or heard before, even in the storybooks date, maybe 12 hours. And the thing is, even I can act sane for 12 hours, let alone 1 or 2. Matter of fact, in 4-hour period, I can be anything I want to be for 4 hours. If we're on a date, I can convince you I am a doctor for 4 hours. I know enough lingo, enough language that I can perpetrate and pretend to be a medical professional for 4 hours. I can be an astronaut for 4 hours. I could be a crime lord for 4 hours. I can be a boxer. I can be a lawyer. In a 4-hour period or a 2-hour date, you may see only what I want you to see. You may be able to, as much as you dig, as many questions you ask, in 2-hour period, you cannot ask enough questions for me not to fool you if I'm choosing to do so. And of course, if I'm trying to impress somebody, even if I don't lie about my profession or lie about who I am or what I am, I'm going to put my best foot forward. So I talk too much because sometimes I'm opinionated. Me being a know-it-all translates over to I'm actually well educated. Me being a slob is sometimes I'll allow things to marinate before I make a decision on them, so I can make a proper, wise decision. When it's just I'm a procrastinator, or I'm just a slob, or lazy to pick up stuff. So I marinate on it until it gets to the point where I can't walk through, and then I clean it up. So it's easy to perpetrate or portray or only give out the good side when all you see is this person is an hour each day, or maybe 2 hours on the phone, or whatever period it is. But when you're dating, you're exploring someone, you only see, they're going to let some stuff slip now, but you're only going to see probably the best side of them if they're putting forth the effort. Now, not that this is wrong, but sometimes it gives you a false sense of who someone is. Like, if you only see them when they're by themselves, you may not know that he's going to put his family, his friends before you. So you want to go out to somewhere special on a special day, and he wants to play basketball with the boys. So the boys is going to win out because they're more special than you. Now, he may not tell you that, but in his heart, in his feelings, in his emotional makeup, it's always funner to hang with the boys than it is to go out on a long date just to shop for a bridesmaid's dress. Even though it's special for you, it's your first time, your sister you love is getting married, you're excited, you're just so ecstatic about the event, and you get to be a part of it. It means so much. She fought off cancer, she fought off an abusive relationship, she fought off all this stuff, and now she's getting married and going on with your life. To you, it's a big deal. To him, we're just going to pick out bridesmaids' dresses. I'm going to shoot ball. But he probably won't tell you that, so you don't know this because you only talk here and there, you only see each other here and there, so you can't get a good foundation of who this person really is in such a short period of time. So basically, if you progress to the marriage stage, you bought a brand new car with 20 miles on it and you're excited about it. But that new car may have some issues that you can't foresee, that aren't in the write-ups, that no one really knows about, or it hasn't been declared to be a recall notice on it yet. So you're driving down the road of life, you've been happily married 5 months, and then you hit a pothole, and out comes that defective airbag and terminates your relationship. While someone else, they may choose to progress in a different manner. And this is frowned upon in the Christian community. It's called shacking up, but I'm all for it. If you're about to go into a lifelong agreement, a lifelong contract, why would you not test drive the car? Now, I'm not talking about premarital sex. I'm not saying fornication, because that's wrong. But I am not one to say or have an issue with you guys co-inhabiting the same space so that you can get to know each other better. Because if he's a slob or she's a slob, you may not know it until you actually have to live under the same roof. And depending on your internal framework and whatever internal, I'll even go as far as say psychosis you may have, him being or her being a slob may be a deal breaker. But before you go into this long-term commitment, this contract, it's better to know that before you get yourself in trouble. Why not shack up? He squeezes his toothpaste from the middle, you like to roll it up from the bottom. It's not a big deal, but it depends on your internal landscape. It could be a deal breaker, and you won't find it out until you actually wake up in the morning and you go brush teeth together. Now, these little things seem petty, but you'll also find out things that are more of a landmine. You may not realize how much stock he puts in what other people think or how other people's opinion matter until you spend lots of time with them in different environments, and you see that he's easily or she is easily influenced by outside sources. So if the latest magazine says that the ideal weight is 120 pounds and you're 125, all of a sudden he's calling you fat or she's calling you fat. Now, if you have a low self-esteem issue, or if you've overcome obesity, or if the other direction you've been, had issues of being too small, too little, and you've overcome those issues, to have someone say that you are big or have someone say you are small, it may cause issues of self. So now your opinion of yourself is starting to get leached away, and here you've shackled yourself to this person because you didn't really know they were this way until you married them. But it had you shacked up for a year, then you would have known that, hey, you know what, I don't like being treated that way. My self-esteem is taking a hit every time we go somewhere, or the TV talk show person says this, or his friends say that, then it's like my feelings don't matter. It's just about how I appear or how things appear. And that can cause real bad issues. I said it previously. Self-esteem and depression go hand in hand. So if you have someone who's belittling you constantly in all manner of ways, whether it's by tone of voice, mannerisms, the things they say, how they behave when certain people are around, all that stuff can be damaging to you and can cause you to go into depressed episodes. Now, if you don't believe in divorce and you stay in this, you're going to be depressed for the rest of your marriage. How is that good when you could have taken a little time to learn this person by test driving? You found out that the oil plug is not tight. You found out that the seat's a little faded on one side. You found out all these issues beforehand. In the Christian community, living in the same house without being married is really, in most cases, a no-no. It's considered to be a sin, but there's actually nothing wrong with it. Heck, Jacob lived in the same household with both of his spouses for 7+ years before they were married. So if Jacob, Israel, if the man himself shacked up, how all of a sudden is it wrong to shack up? And the religious leaders who I've asked, well, where is it in the scriptures about shacking up? The closest one that even makes sense is when Jesus met the woman at the well. And even that, I don't see the connection. But the story is, Jesus came to a well. He asked the water lady to give him a drink of water. She said, hey, you didn't bring a bucket to the well? What's up? Why I gotta get you water? And he says, well, hey, I got some water that's living water. you'll never be thirsty if you drink my water. She's like, well, let me get some. He's like, well, go get your husband and tell him about it, and call your husband here. And she's like, I ain't got no husband. And Jesus is like, yeah, you're right. You don't have a husband. You had 5 husbands, but the man you with now is not your husband. And he's like, good deal. Good job. You didn't lie to me. You told me straight up that you wouldn't have a husband. You didn't pretend like you disguised your husband. You just told me straight up, hey, I don't have a husband right now, even though I'm with this guy. And Jesus like, I applaud the fact that you were honest with me. But somehow, when you read it, it says that, but other people interpret it as because she had 5 husbands and the one she wasn't with now wasn't her husband, that Jesus was mad at her. No, he was actually positive about it. Like, good deal, you didn't lie. You were straight up with me, let me be straight up with you. So I don't know how they got that, but that's the scripture most of them point out to me to say that shacking up is bad. I'm here to tell you that there's nothing wrong with it. Now, fornication, no. And when you shack up, the odds of fornicating increase dramatically because you're in the same place. You're seeing each other day. You're seeing him come out the shower wet with his muscles. You're seeing her come out the shower wet with her cleavage. And, you know, next thing, one thing leads to another. So the odds of fornicating go up greatly when you're in the same, under the same roof. But it's not necessarily a sin to be under the roof if you can control yourself. Anywho, so a lot of times, because of religious constraints, we make lifelong commitments with very little information. And we end up in divorce or in bad marriages, bad relationships, just because we didn't do our research. So many people who I've encountered who suffer from depression have so many triggers that are being pulled by the person who's the closest to them in all the world, and that's their spouse. The person who should have your back before anybody else is the one who's dragging you down and pushing your face in the mud, and it's heartbreaking. If you go into a relationship before you marry that person, if you don't feel like if you and their mother were on fire, if they didn't come to put you out first, then they're not the one for you. Because yes, when you make the commitment to marry someone, you are making the commitment to put them before anybody else, including your mother, including your children, including anybody else. So it is not a commitment to take lightly. It's not a commitment you want to go into just on, I see them every Tuesday, we go on a 2-hour date. That doesn't make sense to me. Why would you do that when there's so much potential here for ruination and unhappiness and a terrible quality of life? Just because somebody said you shouldn't shack up. And they put it on God, like God wants you to go into this lifelong commitment with no research. He even says, look at me, look at my ways, look at what I've done, look what I can do, follow me. Even he gives you the option of research. So why wouldn't he want you to research when you're going into a relationship that's supposed to be lifelong? To death do you part. So it's something to consider if you are in the process of dating, in the process of being engaged. Your parents may frown upon it, your preacher may frown upon it, your priest, your elders may frown upon it, your mom may frown upon it, your family, everybody may frown upon it, but they're not the ones going to have to marry that person. You are. My advice, though you don't have to take it, because like I said, the temptation to fornicate is great in that environment. So that may not be for you because you know you're easily tempted. So you're just like, I'm going to separate myself from that and not be in that environment. Then I applaud you. My hat's off to you. But if you not living under that constraint, or if you feel brave enough to where you can hopefully persevere and not do that, then I actually suggest that you shack up. I said it. I want you to. Because the more shacking up, the less divorce. I'm not going to go as far as say God prefers fornication to divorce. I'm not going to go that far. But I will say, I'd rather you risk fornication than risk divorce. Anywho, I want you to think about that, keep that in mind. Because like I said, it's too many of us are getting in these dead-end relationships from lack of knowledge. And it's coloring us and preventing us from living. And it's causing us to actually be dead at the same time as we're breathing. Because we have no life. Because we have no love. We have no laughter. We have no fun. All we have is this anchor of a relationship that's dragging us down and keeping us depressed and drugged out and drunk up and everything else. All because we didn't make an informed decision. Anywho, food for thought. This is the Highway Holy Man, and I'm signing out. Oh, don't forget, I love you. I care about you. I'm with you. Now I'm signing out.